He's still got the same problem. He had distance in there, but the problem is still there. The point is, you can't unscramble scrambled eggs. Now, God can, but you can't. 20 years later, he still faces the same problem. So what does he do? He basically sends messengers to tell his brother he's coming home. There's manipulation going on here. Runs in the family. He's hoping to get something back, some good information back. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, verse 6, "We came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him." This doesn't sound so good when the last thing you heard from your brother was he's going to kill you. So he's riding up with 400 men. He's like, that doesn't sound like a welcoming committee. Now, God allowed this. Why did God allow this? God didn't allow good news to come back to him, because it was about the original problem. The original problem was not the fact that he deceived his brother. The original problem was his fear, which caused him to run away. The original problem was essentially his lack of trust in God, because he didn't trust God for the blessing. He tried to make it happen himself. And he ran away because of fear and not trusting God. And he ran away because it was manipulation in the first place. No trusting God. What's the problem? Not trusting God in the first place. Now God says he sends him home. It's like, what's he going to do? Is he going to trust God? He just got word his brother's coming with 400 men. That's a tough one. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. Yeah, I think that's reasonable to feel that way. The last thing you heard was, yeah, he's going to kill you. Now he's got 400 men with him. Should be a pretty easy job now. 400 men. And he divided the people that was with him, and the stock, and the flocks, and the herds, and the camels into 2 bands, and said, "If Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape." Not much trust in God there. He's still trying to manipulate things, still trying to make things happen. He's trying to unscramble his eggs. And Jacob said, verse 9, "O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord which said to me, return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee." Okay, now he's trying a little bit of the same kind of manipulation with God. He said, "But God, you told me to go back. You said you'd be good to me." Verse 10, "I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become 2 bands." He's recognizing what God had given him in the midst of this situation 20 years later. He's worried about losing it. He's thanking God for what he got, but he's worried now about losing this all. Verse 11, "Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. For I fear him, lest he will come and smite me, and the mother with the children." Now he's dealing with it. He's confronting his fear. He's recognizing that he can't unscramble his scrambled eggs. So what's he going to do? He brings it to God. And he tells God, first of all, how he feels. "I fear him, lest he will come and smite me and the mother with the children." It's not about the cattle. It's about the people. It's about him. It's about his wives. It's about his children. Actually, he's being a good leader here. And he's bringing his fears to God, which is the first step to actually unscrambling your eggs. You can't do it, but you have to bring it to God to let him work with it. And you got to be honest with him if you want to get those eggs unscrambled. "And thou saidst, I will surely do thee good, and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude." See, he's remembering what God had promised him. So he is fearful, but he's bringing to remembrance in his prayer to God what God has spoken to him. Why is that important? It's important because you're standing, when you speak it, you're standing in agreement with what God has to say in the Spirit. Emotionally, you're fearful. Emotionally, you're scared you're going to lose it all. You have to face that fear. You have to voice that fear, but you also have to voice what God said. You have to stand in that. And thou saidst, I will surely do thee good and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. And he lodged there that same night, and took of that which came to his hand a present for Esau his brother. He's still trying to fix it. You know, in the midst of us trying to work through our stuff, it's always mixed signals. Okay? By which I mean, he talks to God about his fears. He reinforces and speaks what God had spoken over him, but yet he still can't quite get out of the way. But I mean, that's what real salvation is about. We have to work out our salvation. And he's working out his salvation here. He's still trying to fix it. He wants God to fix it, but he's still trying to fix it. And he lodged there that same night and took that which came to his hand, a present for Esau his brother, 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their colts, 40 kine, 10 bulls, 20 she-asses, 10 foals. And he delivered them into the hand of his servants, every drove by themselves, and said to his servants, pass over before me, and put a space between drove and drove. And he commanded the foremost, saying, when Esau thy brother meeteth thee, my brother meeteth thee, and asketh thee, saying, whose art thou, and whither goest thou? And whose are these before thee? Thou shalt say, they are thy servant Jacob's. It is a present sent unto my lord Esau, and behold, also he is behind us. So he's hoping, well, he's going to send it a wave. And then he comes to the next one, and then he sees the next present. And then he sees the next present. And then he sees the next present. He's hoping he's going to get all caught up with the presents. This has nothing to do with God. It's got everything to do with Jacob, because he's a manipulator. He's still working on his salvation, but he's thinking this is the way to do it. And so commanded he the second and the third, and all that followed the droves, speaking on this manner shall ye speak unto Esau when you find him. And say ye moreover, behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goeth before me. And afterward I will see his face, peradventure he will accept of me. So went the present over before him, and himself lodged that night in the company. This is it's such a good example of walking out our salvation. Because it's like, he comes to God and he says, God, I'm fearful, which is very important. And he said, you had said, and it's important to say that because you're reaffirming the truth of it. But he's still trying to fix it. That's as natural for us as breathing. We're trying to fix it because we're trying to manipulate to get the result that we want to get. And basically, in the process of doing that, we're excluding God. He didn't ask God, should I break up these bands? Should I give this present? Should I do it this way? He didn't ask God any of that. He's just, well, this is how I'm going to fix it. For he said, I will appease him with the present that I goeth before me. And God's got nothing to do with that. It's interesting because, of course, it does work out. That's a whole different message. How God gets it all unscrambled. You'll get that next week. But the point here is, we ourselves get ourselves into trouble, and God allows that to work out our salvation. We have to experience the practical implications of the problems that we get into. Otherwise, we will continue to get into them. And in fact, when we continue to do the same thing, you notice the results continue to get worse every time we do them. Because he wants to get our attention. And 20 years later, he had Jacob's attention. 20 years later, he came to the place that's like, okay, now you have to face your selfishness. You have to face your fear. You have to face your lack of God. And what you're going to do about it. We find out next week how God works that out with Jacob. And that's our message today.